Hello everybody, good evening, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and have we got an action-packed show for you tonight. Loads of news. It may as well be a 10 o'clock show because there's so much to talk about. Casemiro up for sale to fund a stadium rebuild. The INEOS curse, a big list of failures INEOS have been involved in the sporting world, and a big shout down from Simon Jordan, giving a big warning to Manchester United fans. We'll talk what that's all about. Also, we'll be talking about another investor who's just spent quite a few million investing in Manchester United today. What's that all about? And also Onana's fears and Manchester United fears as he looks to miss a month of action in January. The story about that we'll talk about as well. And a little bit about Jadon Sancho and anything else you want to talk about as well. Absolutely loads to get into. All coming from... yeah, it's all news really. And I think probably the most interesting thing I want to get into is what Simon Jordan's been talking about in relation to INEOS and Sir Jim and how he's failed at a lot of things, and United fans should be very, very worried. So we'll talk about that. It is a bit of news, a good bit of news, not good news, but a good news story to get involved in. But before we get into all of that, you'll see next to me, we're sponsored by Surfshark on this show. If you don't know what Surfshark is, it's a VPN, a top tier VPN, which is a virtual private network. What's that all about? Well, it's about protecting your online data, privacy, private messages, photos, sensitive material, securely safeguarded. But one of the coolest features about Surfshark, which I've mentioned before, is it can change your virtual location on platforms like Netflix, giving you access to a world of content no matter where you are. So you can be in America and log into your English Netflix by saying you're in London. That's how it works. Not only is it a VPN service, they also offer a one suite, which is a comprehensive set of tools for digital life. This includes Alert, which notifies if your personal data is compromised, search for private and ad-free browsing, antivirus, real-time protection against malware, and alternative ID for additional privacy options. You can use it on an unlimited devices, so you can be on your phone, your laptop, your whatever else, and it's compatible with Android, iOS, Amazon Fire, and all of that lot. Now, for the exciting part, this is a Black Friday Surfshark deal, and they're rolling out an exceptional deal just for you. By using the code UNITEDSTAND at the link in the description or scanning the QR code next to me, you can get 6 extra months for free on your Surfshark subscription. That's right, up to half a year of premium digital protection at no extra cost. This offer is exclusively for you, so make sure to grab it while it lasts. And remember, with Surfshark, you're not just getting a VPN service, you're getting a complete digital protection package. Check out through the link in the video description or by scanning the QR code next to me. Fantastic offer, and it's exclusive to you with the code UNITEDSTAND 6 months. Check out the detail in the video description. Massive shout out to Surfshark. Right, from Surfshark, let's jump in to this United Stand show this evening. How are we all doing? I was up in Manchester actually today with the team, sorting some stuff out for the Christmas show. Talking of Christmas, we've sold out of the Christmas jumpers. I did warn you, if you got your order in, well done. You can't get them now. They're all sold out. We've got about 10 that we're going to be giving out at the Christmas show. But if you wanted to purchase one, I did warn you, they went really fast. Thanks for everyone who bought them. Those knitted Christmas jumpers are now all gone. However, we've still got a few tickets left for the Christmas show. I think we've got about 80 left. So if you want to be at the Christmas show, you've got a chance of winning a Christmas jumper. I've been handing it out from Santa Bridge, but you can be at the Christmas show, which we were all working on today. It's going to be a great night. Check it out through the link in the video description or in the live chat. Daniel Shabar says, how people think Sir Jim's and the Glazers deal works for United is baffling. Wasn't it Joel Glazer that overruled Jose when he wanted Martial out, and he's on the reported joint football panel? It's a worrying future. Well, let's get into the show, Daniel. There's a lot to talk about. I'm going to start off with this story because people are going, where are you getting this stuff from? I couldn't believe this. I was driving back from Manchester. I was listening to the radio. They mentioned Casemiro. I got in. I saw it in The Sun. I thought The Sun had sourced it. And then I saw that they were linking it back to TalkSport. So this is coming in from Alex Crook, who is effectively TalkSport's transfer expert. And this is what he's saying. Manchester United will consider cashing in on Casemiro. TalkSport understands. The Brazilian ace is the latest Premier League star being targeted for a big money move to Saudi Arabia. United's incoming minority owner, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who will lead the club's sporting department, is believed to be open to offers for the 31-year-old to help fund an Old Trafford rebuild. United paid 60 million to sign Casemiro, and he's also one of their top earners, and this was a year ago. He played a key role in Ten Hag's side, finishing third and reaching 2 cup finals last season. Well, look, I find this amazing as a fan of Casemiro. I find it absolutely amazing. And effectively, I mean, the big line And look, we can take it with a pinch of salt. We can believe it. We don't have to believe it. But I think there is certainly moves afoot to move the biggest earners out of the club. And Casemiro is one of those, and Varane is one of those, and Sancho is one of those, and Ronaldo was one of those, and De Gea was one of those. So I think there's a running theme at United. And I suppose the cynics would say this is the problem. That, you know, Love United, Hate the Glazers would say this is the problem. We've been warning you about it. This is not about selling Casemiro to buy a top-class holding midfielder. This is about letting a top-class holding midfielder go and replacing him with somebody cheaper who's on cheaper wages. And the line that worries me is this is believed to Man United are believed to be open to offers for Casemiro to help fund an Old Trafford rebuild. I mean, that's terrifying. I don't want to hear these things. I don't want to read these things. I don't want to know about that. I don't want to think that. I don't want to be preparing myself for that. I don't want us to be getting rid of expensive wages and players so we can rebuild Old Trafford. I mean, that terrifies me. That might even be part of the vocabulary. That we might even consider that. I do not want to be selling players in Manchester United's. I mean, look, put it like this. I don't want our only holding midfielder being sold so that we can fix a leaky roof at Old Trafford. If we get rid of our only holding midfielder, we're going to have a very, very leaky defence at Old Trafford. So I choose not to believe this story because believing it or contemplating it is absolutely unbelievable. I can't get my head around that. We surely cannot be in a position where we're going to sell players to fund Old Trafford or anything like that. If we sell players, it's got to be to reduce the wage bill and bring money in so that we can open that gap up to spend more money on financial fair play. I choose not to believe that. And look, I can go either way here, but I choose not to believe that we would sell players to fund Old Trafford. That's very, very worrying, and I don't think that will be the case. I really, really don't. I mean, I'll keep an open mind. I don't think so. What I will concede is I do think Casemiro and Varane are on the chopping block. I do think that they are going to be surplus to requirements, and I think it mainly will be to do with business. I think they will look at those players, ignore how good they are, and go, they're in their 30s, they're very expensive. From a business point of view, we shouldn't be paying £300,000 to each of those players a week who are coming towards the end of their careers. And I think that's what they'll look at it. And I don't agree with that because I think that's a business decision and we need to be making footballing decisions. But as part of a long-term projection, I think that's what they will do. It goes hand in hand with two key features here. From the business side, the Glazers will love it because you're getting rid of high wages and you'll get some money for them from Saudi Arabia. And from a footballing side, they can do it under the pretense or vision that they're removing players who are expensive and into their 30s to replace them with hungrier, younger players, which makes the squad more forward-thinking over the next 5 years, but also cheaper to run. So I think they'll sell it both ways. And the cynics will say it's a business decision, and the people who think it's about a footballing vision will say it's about a footballing vision. But I think, you know, pick your side. It doesn't really matter. You can argue both. It could be a mixture of both. But I do think Casemiro will be. I said this. When did I say it? I said it last month or a couple of weeks ago. I guarantee you, Casemiro and Varane will not be at United this time next year. I don't know whether it'll happen in January. Maybe it'll happen in the summer. It's a shame. I really do like Casemiro. He was my player of the year last year. But there's definitely been a change in Casemiro this season. There's definitely been a change in Varane this season. And you wonder whether there was any movement in the summer to try and move them on. I don't know. I'd love to know that. Was there any attempt in the summer to move them on? Has that had an impact on them? We don't know. We don't know. It just sounds to me in simple terms, all the transfer funds we receive isn't getting reinvested into the team, says Jack. Well, we await this further detail. We definitely await this further detail. Somebody just said, well, look, Mr. G-Man says, Casemiro is not as good as he once was, so why not sell him? Mate, come on. I'm not having this. Who has been good this season? Nobody. I think Casemiro has been targeted by certain people like Gobi Agbonlahor who say he's fell off and he's lost a load of pace or whatever. And I just think it's a load of nonsense. It's selective targeting of players that it suits the media to target. I I'm not saying Casemiro's been good this season, but for those people who say he's fell off and he's finished, I say he's tired and been overplayed. Because Bruno isn't finished, but has been overplayed. Rashford isn't finished, but has been overplayed. Martinez started the season off not looking that great. Eriksen's not been good this year. There's a lot of players that have not performed this season. I'm open to the fact that Varane, Casemiro are not playing well, but neither's Rashford or Bruno or any other players from last season. I think it's way too premature to say that Casemiro's fallen off. I'd like to see Casemiro when he comes back in January and see what he's like then after 2 months rest. Because I think you'll see a very, very different Casemiro. I think we'll see a very different Luke Shaw. I think we'll see a very different Martinez. These are players. Look at Wan-Bissaka with 2 months off. Wan-Bissaka looks like our best player. He's just had 2 months off. I think Luke Shaw, Martinez, Casemiro, you'll be very surprised when they come back. I think they will look like brand new signings because they'll have had that 2 month rest. None of them have had that. At the end of they played an FA Cup final in June. They all went on international duty until pretty much the end of June. And then they're pretty much back in the middle of July to go to America. So none of them have had more than a week or two break. I think it will make a big difference, but I guess we'll have to see. But I don't think that will make any difference to United's intentions to remove big earning players who are over 30. And I think that will happen. Look, I need to talk to you about this. You wanted to sell Rashford a few years ago when he fell off. Why is now different for Casemiro? This is not important. Oh, you know what? It's a super chat, so I've got to answer it. But I really wish you hadn't asked me that. Not because I don't think it's worth answering, just because I think it's a bit... I think you've been a bit naive. I don't get what you're talking about. I wanted to sell Rashford because he'd had a really bad season and his brother had been talking to PSG and his contract was nearly out. And I felt at that point he couldn't buy a good performance. And I thought it'd be good for him and for us. Casemiro has had a bad start to a season, like probably a month or two. And we haven't got any other holding midfielders. I don't really get what your point is. Rashford was about performing badly in his mid-20s. This is one of the best holding midfielders of the last 5 to 10 years, who I think was our player of the year last year, who's had a bad start to the season, and I think it's because of fatigue. I wouldn't be looking to... There's a massive difference. That's like saying, what's the difference between that horse and that wheelbarrow? I think not everything's the same. If we get rid of our winners, how are we going to replace these players, says Xander? And how will this relationship of Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the Glazers work, says Mario? They'll take care of the commercial side, but surely buying flashy players is still part of it, says Mario. Well, look, I want to talk about this very interesting clip I got sent from about Simon Jordan said this today, who is a pundit, presenter, whatever, on TalkSport. And he basically came out with some things that if you're anti-Sir Jim or you're worried about Sir Jim, fasten your seatbelts for this, because he mentioned something called the INEOS curse. And what he basically said is that when Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS invested into the All Blacks rugby team, they declined. When he invested in the America's Cup, which is sailing with Ben Ainsley, that went wrong. Nice has been a failure up until now, where they're second in the league. Lausanne FC, which is Swiss, just got relegated. Every time INEOS invest in something, it tends to go bad. And, he then he then said, but Man United fans won't care because they're the ABG crowd, which is anyone but the Glazers. But he said, look, there is no way, in his opinion, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe is buying Manchester United for the good of his soul. He's not doing it because he just thinks, I want to make Manchester United great again and spend loads of money on it. Everything he's done in his career has been about, making money. He's a business guy. And as for his emotional index for buying Manchester United, well, where was his emotional index when he was trying to do this to Chelsea or Barcelona? So it was a bit of a hit job on Sir Jim Ratcliffe and INEOS by Simon Jordan. So I did a little bit of research on this, and actually I found an article which was back from January by Andy Dunn, who is a journalist here, and he basically said the same thing. He said that, as most Manchester United fans will know, Monaco Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his company INEOS already have many sporting interests, but Sir Jim Ratcliffe isn't necessarily the white knight Man United fans crave. Look at his sporting failures. 2018, Ratcliffe and INEOS invested over 100 million in a bid, amongst others, to claim the America's Cup in 2021. INEOS Team UK, led by Ben Ainsley, lost an eliminator 7-1 and did not even make the final. In cycling, in the spring of 2019, Tim Sky became Team INEOS after Ratcliffe sanctioned a deal said to be worth £40 million a year. A Team Sky rider had won Le Tour in each of the four previous years, and they did get off to a winning start, but they haven't won it since. Formula One, INEOS bought a third of the all-conquering Mercedes team ahead of the 2021 season, which saw them win an 8th consecutive Constructors' Championship, but in 2022 they did not even make the top 2. And as we've mentioned, in football and in rugby, there have also been other failures. It's interesting, isn't it? Look, Simon Jordan certainly went in on it. Don't talk about horses; you'll give people PTSD. Says not important. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's record with INEOS isn't necessarily the best. It doesn't mean that Manchester United will be a failure, but I think a reality bite's important. And I think the reason Simon Jordan was talking about it is because he likes to go in on Manchester United, and he likes to go in on Manchester United fans. And I think, the comment of ABG, which is United fans will be happy about it because it's anyone but the Glazers, that made me think maybe there's a bit of sour grapes from Simon Jordan here towards Manchester United, because if Manchester United work with INEOS, what happened with the rugby, the football, the rowing and anything else is irrelevant. But what I didn't like was the ABG crowd will be happy because it's anyone but the Glazers. I mean, that's just such a bad observation of the last 12 months of this sale process. The cold, harsh facts is Man United fans aren't happy with the Sir Jim Ratcliffe deal because it's not anyone but the Glazers, because he's still working with the Glazers. And there are actually a lot of United fans out there that are very concerned about this deal. So I don't think it's a fair reflection on United fans, and I don't think it's necessarily a fair reflection on INEOS. Of course, there are concerns. I don't think Sir Jim Ratcliffe or Sir David Brailsford have a very good track record in football at all. It's probably quite fair to talk about their plans to buy Chelsea and Barcelona. They clearly wanted a football club, and now it's the club that Sir Jim supported as a child. And has supported all his life. But of course there are concerns. I don't think there is a Manchester United fan out there that isn't potentially concerned about how this deal will work. For me, none more so the Glazers, and what I was saying this morning around what sort of decisions can be made by Sir Jim Ratcliffe and what are ultimately going to be owned by the Glazers. Ben Jacobs said yesterday £2 billion has been put forward by Sir Jim Ratcliffe to be invested in the club, but it could be over a number of years, not over a number of months. So we await the finer detail. As I say this morning, there are a lot of concerns. I would not be jumping into bed with the Glazers and Sir Jim Ratcliffe if I was an ex-player without having a lot of answers, because ultimately it will come back on you if you do that. And we await those answers. Of course, INEOS don't have an amazing track record in all sport, but my perception of them, if I'm being honest, is that they do have quite a good reputation in sport. I don't think the F1 relationship with Mercedes is a bad thing. My perception of them in cycling was that it was quite good. Nice are doing okay at the moment, although there has been issues. And Manchester United's a different animal. And at some point, you've just got to go, we lost. We didn't get a full sale. We didn't get the Glazers out. They're still here. And this is the situation we've got. So we might be hoping, we might be praying, but we need to see what happens with it. This is exactly what I've been saying for ages, but some people ridiculed me in the comments, and the only comeback was look at Nice, top of the league, says Jack. But yeah, with Nice, even I would say it's only this season. That they haven't done particularly well. When do we think Sir Jim Ratcliffe's deal will be announced, says Adrian Cox. I don't know. I mean, I've got a funny feeling it might be Thursday, but it could be tomorrow. Today's been quite quiet. I just got a funny feeling it might be Thursday or maybe early next week. But I think United would be stupid not to use, because next week we'll be building towards a very tough week in the football with Everton and Galatasaray and Newcastle. So I think United would be foolish not to use it. Darshan says, did Leon Cooperman buy a stake in United? Yes. So look, this is a bit of a nothing story. Basically, there was an investor into Manchester United shares today called Leon Cooperman. He spent about $17 million on Class A shares. Obviously, you can't buy Class B shares because they're owned by the Glazers. This, I mean, look, 16.8 million on shares isn't that big when you consider the Glazers value the club at, what, nearly 5 billion? So it's a small amount of Class A shares. This is not really an indicator of anything bigger than somebody buying shares in Manchester United. I don't know how it works with insider trading. There has been some rumours that this guy's been done for insider trading in the past. But, I mean, it might just be somebody buying shares in Manchester United because they know there's about to be an announcement with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and they think those shares will go up in price. I mean, some other people might do that, I suppose. But look, it's not... Leon Cooperman's an American businessman anyway, so there's nothing positive from this at all, and it's certainly not going to shift the momentum of a deal between the Glazers and Sir Jim Ratcliffe. It's just somebody looking to make a bit of money on United shares from what I can see, and it's not a massively significant amount. Flo says, and why City players are not overplayed? They are not performing, simply as that. You need to communicate your point better, because I don't know what that means. So Jim is going to take us back to the top, says Eddie Johnson. I wish it was that simple as writing a sentence. And Class A shares sounds like a drug deal they're finalising, says Weston. And he'll sell them the next day, says Michael Talbot. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know how that works. I mean, I'm not really going to go into finance here, but realistically, there is about to be some big news announced about Manchester United. I don't know how the market works with this because everybody knows they're about to announce a deal with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and United shares are available. So I think this guy may well have just bought some shares. The share price is about $17 at the moment. It could go up to 20. So you've just made $3 on the share. If you buy a few million, it's quite a bit of money, isn't it? So I don't know how that works but surely the New York Stock Exchange takes a look at that because there's a very big chance that United's price will go up. Would you take Calvin Phillips as a Casemiro replacement if possible, says Jack? Well, it's a good question. I mean, I would take Calvin Phillips. I know a lot of people won't like that because he's played for Leeds and Man City, but he's better than McTominay or Ericsson as a holding midfielder. So, yeah, I probably would, Jack. But I mean, I don't know. I don't understand how we can be contemplating selling Casemiro when we don't actually have a second holding midfielder. So I don't really understand how that works at all. Oh, God, we would be doomed if we did that, says Will. So, Jim, I've done that one, okay. And he owed it in tax, might as well buy shares out of it, says Tommy. And a few people are just saying Calvin Phillips, seriously. Lincoln Design says we'll never close the gap on City. No, I don't want to be depressive, but I'm old enough and experienced enough, like some of you are, to know that I don't think we will be closing a gap on Man City or Newcastle or Arsenal or Liverpool anytime soon. I think we're a long, long way behind, even if we start running the club properly. I think it's going to be very, very, very difficult. And I don't want to go on about this because I've said it so many times, but when I look at Manchester United, I see a squad that's not good enough, that's going to take a long time to put right. You've got to sell players and buy players. I see a coaching setup that's not good enough. I see a fitness department that's not good enough. I see a recruitment department that's not good enough. And I think that those things will take a long time to put right. And whilst we're trying to put those things right, all the other clubs are already ahead of us and probably doing things better than us. So it's like a running race, isn't it? We're running a race here where everybody is way out in front and running fast. And that gap's getting bigger because we're not running fast enough just to maintain the gap. So I think we're falling further behind. I think there's a lot for Manchester United to do. And that's just a very pragmatic, honest answer. I don't think there's a quick fix at Man United. And on top of that, the stadium needs rebuilding. We're in massive debt. We've got issues with financial fair play. I don't think this job is easy for Sir Jim Ratcliffe. And I think he's bought in with the Glazers because they're looking at a massive TV deal or a Super League or something like that to save them. I think that's what this is all about. Definitely. That's my theory. And that's why I go back to what we were talking about 6 months ago, 10 months ago. If somebody came to me and said, whatever you say, we will do to fix Man United, but you've just got to give us 3 things and we will do it, no matter what it is, I would say, right, remove the Glazers and pump in 3 billion tomorrow and then another billion for the next 5 years. That's what I would do. So full sale and billions invested into the club. And only then could you start a rebuild. We're not going to get that, I don't think. I think we're going to try and pull a miracle off here. I think Sir Jim can only pull a miracle off. I don't think he can pull off a deal that's, you know, what Abu Dhabi's done to Man City or what Saudi Arabia have done to Newcastle. I don't see that. But I think it's going to be very, very difficult. I don't see United doing anything significant for at least 5 years. And 5 years is a long time in football. 5 years is a long time. But look, it's not my job to do it. It's not your job to do it. Our job's to hope we can do it. And I guess we'll have to just wait and see if it can be done. In other news, there was a story coming out about Onana. This came from the Mirror. And remember, the Mirror have been quite well sourced around Ten Hag. So they're basically saying that Onana is concerned and Manchester United are concerned about how many games he's going to miss in January. And apparently Onana's concerned that he could lose his first team spot with that happening. This is something that I don't really massively... I think it's an issue, but I don't think it's... Well, I don't think it's anything that is worth thinking about at the moment, because the immediate issues at Manchester United are what the detail of this Sir Jim Ratcliffe deal is, and then in a footballing sense, a very, very difficult December. 3 really difficult away games straight away. Liverpool on the horizon. Christmas fixtures are difficult. So Onana being gone in January is a problem, but if things went really badly, they might be a problem for a new manager. So I'm not really thinking about Onana in January, because that's dismissing what's going to be a very challenging December. But it is an issue. Some might say that buying Onana was just ridiculously stupid. Some might say that buying a goalkeeper for 50 million quid who was going to miss a month of the season in his first season and he needs to settle was massively short-sighted. Some might say we should have kept De Gea for another year and it wouldn't have cost us 50 million and he would have done as well as Onana's done this year. They're probably all valuable points, but I would always come back to the fact that we did buy Onana and we did let De Gea go, and we live in a reality, and the reality is that Onana's our goalkeeper and we must hope that it works out. Did United not realise this was a possibility when they bought a goalkeeper that was, not really retired from international duty, but more fallen out with his international duty, and immediately signs for Manchester United and immediately gets back into the international scene? He will miss a month in January, and Onana is right to be concerned about it, because it's not like when Onana goes, we're not going to play with a goalkeeper. We will play with a goalkeeper, and if we get 5 or 6 clean sheets and the goalkeeper plays well, he shouldn't lose his spot. So, look, I can't sympathise with Onana, because it's just unfortunate if you are a goalkeeper and it's hard to win your place back as a goalkeeper if someone comes in and does well. But there is always the option of not playing for your national team, so which you weren't when you signed for us. It's just an unfortunate event. I mean, nobody can criticise a player for wanting to play for their country. You can't. I don't like international football much, but I'd never criticise somebody for wanting to play for their country. It's a unique feeling that people feel very, very proud of. So it would be unfair to say that Onana shouldn't play for his country. However, I think the onus and blame, if any, needs to be attached is with Man United's recruitment. Like, they should have seen this coming, and they spent a lot of money on it. So, but we have Binder, and that's going to be his option. The only thing I would say about Binder is that maybe, look, we are absolutely sure that we're going to be without Onana in January. Maybe we should have given Binder his debut by now. But can I just say, we assume it's going to be Binder. It might put Tom Heaton in goal. So we'll have to wait and see. Hi, Mark. If things keep going on the way they are for another 5 years, do you see Sir Jim staying or trying to sell strictly for business, says Ricky. Well, I spoke to somebody about a month ago, and they said to me that, look, everybody will be very concerned and anxious if the Glazers stay and do a deal with Sir Jim. But there's nothing to say if it goes completely wrong in 3 or 4 years' time. Sheikh Jassim doesn't come back in and offer the money again. Like, it doesn't mean that this deal... It doesn't mean that the Glazers and Sir Jim will work together forever. What if it goes spectacularly wrong and they can't work together? What are the get-out clauses? I mean, we don't know. And nobody talks about this, and it's probably a very unlikely scenario, but sometimes people go into business together and they fall out. And when they fall out, somebody wants out. And when they want out, does the other party have the money to do anything about it? Or does somebody swoop in and say, look, we'll buy you both out? So I don't think that's going to happen, but it's not impossible. And maybe at some point in the future, if this goes wrong, we do end up on the market and there's a cash out for whoever. But what we need to know is the detail, because Sir Jim Ratcliffe is paying 1.25 billion for 25%, and then apparently he's putting 2 billion in. That surely allows him to take more stake of the football club. I can only see that 25% going up. It's just how much it goes up. But there's no guarantee of success. There can be no guarantee of success, and it would be very arrogant to expect success, because let's look through the Premier League history. Blackburn Rovers were a previous Premier League winner with Jack Walker. I remember they got bought by the, was it the Indian family who had the chickens or something like that? I mean, it's very, very long time ago. They ended up relegated and they were rich. Mike Ashley, very rich at Newcastle, complete failure. There are countless examples of Premier League clubs that have been owned by rich people and it's failed. Liverpool, before the current regime, was it Hicks and Gillette? That didn't work at all. Leeds, bloody nightmare. So just because you've got a rich owner doesn't mean you're going to be successful. Look at Aston Villa with, was it Randy Lerner, another very rich person? It didn't work. So just because we have to be wary of that. Just because you're rich doesn't mean you're going to be successful. I mean, it's sort of what Simon Jordan was saying this morning, bitterness or not. It's sort of what he's saying is that, look, Man United fans are just desperate for something to work. It might not work. Just because someone's got wealth doesn't mean it's going to work. If Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Sir David Brailsford are such experts in football, why have they only ever bought a Swiss team and a small French team? You know, if they're so good at football, why are they not owning a Man United before? Or so look, of course, things could go wrong. Hi, Mark. Do you think Sir Jim will have a good reception in Old Trafford? Have a great day, says Happy. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, and I don't speak for any other fan. Everyone else has got to make their own mind up. I don't know. I think, as I said this morning, if he does some integration with people, you know, get some ex-players involved, ticks those boxes, does a few interviews, people might give him a bit of patience. Other people might go, this is a guy who's kept the Glazers in the club. I don't want anything to do with him. To be honest, I don't even know what my reaction is to him. I mean, let's be honest. I'm not going to throw this off to you as United fans or other United fans. Do you know how you're going to feel about it? I don't know how I'm going to feel about it. One part of me is this is the guy that stopped us being sold. You know, this is the guy that gave the Glazers. This is the guy that kept the Glazers at United. I mean, let's be honest. That still really hurts. I was very vocal about this in March. I felt that anybody who kept the Glazers at the club was an enemy of the club. And Sir Jim Ratcliffe, whether you like it or not, has kept the Glazers at the football club. On the other hand, if his plan ticks enough boxes and the Glazers aren't going to be here in 2 or 3 years and lots of money's going to come in, maybe there's a plan that works. But, you know, it's very, very difficult. It's certainly not what I wanted. And why City player? I've done that one from Flo. Mojo, you're a legend. He's just gifted 20 memberships. Thank you very much, Mojo. And Marcus says, fix Carrington and fix the recruitment. I'll give him a chance, says Marcus. What? So, Marcus, you're going to give him a chance if he fixes Carrington, the training ground, and gets a director of football in? I think we need a lot more than that, mate. What about Old Trafford? What about performance on the pitch? What about transfers? What about the debts? You know, I think you're selling yourself a little bit cheap there, mate. I think you need a hell of a lot more than that. Why would United buy Phillips, a player who can't make the first team at City, says Yed? Because we're not as good as City. And maybe he's a cheap signing that Man United might go for. I don't know. Lots of love for Mojo in the chat there. What somebody just said there. All right, Mark. What would your what are you expecting from Sir Jim? Well, I think from being absolutely honest, what I expect for Sir Jim Ratcliffe is this. Considering he has done a deal with the Glazers to keep them at the football club, considering we're Manchester United, considering the football club has been starved of any genuine success for over a decade, I would say, in keeping with what this football club is all about, I would say, why should I lower my expectations and give him an easy hurdle to jump? I would say my expectations and demands from Sir Jim Ratcliffe is that he makes us a title-winning team again on the consistent. And I'll keep it at that. Because to do that, he's got to fix everything else. I would say the minimum Sir Jim Ratcliffe needs to deliver to Manchester United is consistent title races and titles. Everything else will fall into place if that happens. If we become the team that we used to be, that competed for the title every single year, which I don't think is too much to ask, considering we are the Bayern Munich of England, we are the Juventus of England, we are the Real Madrid of England, that is the status of Manchester United. I say Sir Jim Ratcliffe has to be delivering consistent title races and titles very quickly within the next 3 years. Anything less than that is failure. Now, I might be in the minority there because some people might be going, oh, come on, that's not realistic, that's not fair. But that's who we are. That's who Manchester United are. That's what we're meant to be. In the Premier League era, we are, up until the last 10 years, the definitive, consistent title contenders. And it's disappeared because of the Glazers. So Sir Jim Ratcliffe's going to work with the Glazers and be a success. He has to deliver the club back to where it was in 2012, which was a consistent title contending team that won titles. That is it. Everything else, if we do that, everything else will be done. Because to do that, you've got to spend well. You've got to have good recruitment. You've got to have a good fitness department. You've got to be making decisions that the Glazers aren't making. All those things, I wouldn't even say Sir Jim Ratcliffe needs to do this. For me, he has to deliver titles consistently at Manchester United. And I'm talking Premier League titles. Do you think there would be a contingency plan if Sir Jim passes away down the line? What would happen to the stake? INEOS sell it, says Raz. Well, I don't know. I don't know about that. And I don't know whether that's even fair to ask that. Because for one, he's not particularly old. I think he's in his 70s or early 70s. And for two, Malcolm Glazer died quite a long time ago, didn't he? And it just went to his kids. So I don't think we can be... I think there's bigger concerns than Sir Jim Ratcliffe passing away. I mean, that would be ridiculously unfortunate for him and for us. And he's not of an age where you would expect that to happen. So, but look, he is the figurehead of what's about to happen. We don't know what's beyond Sir Jim Ratcliffe if that is... if that did happen. But I'm sure there will be some sort of contingency there. And Mr. 25% will do the right thing with this minority investment, says AK. Creeping Brain says, so anything except titles every year will be a failure. I see what you're doing here. I see what I'm doing here as well, mate. I'd love you to explain what I'm doing here, because I'll tell you what I'm doing, Creeping Brain. I am setting the actual standard of what Manchester United is. We should challenge for a title every year. Gary Neville would tell you that. Sir Alex Ferguson would tell you that. I'm not asking for something unachievable. We literally did it for 20 years. And then the Glazers fucked the club up. Like Man United at the start of the season being a title contender and seeing it through is what we should do every year, because that's what we did do every year. It's not unachievable to get us back there. And anybody who doesn't set that standard really doesn't understand what Manchester United should be about. So I don't know what I'm doing there other than setting the proper target for Manchester United. And if we don't achieve that and we're fighting for third and fourth every year, then we'll never get rid of the Glazers, because that will make them money and you lot will go, that's acceptable. I don't understand the Manchester United fan that thinks third or fourth and a crappy domestic cup is good enough. We've just done that. We've been to 2 domestic cup finals in third place. It was nice, but nice is a rubbish word. I don't want nice. I want excellence. I want memorable. We won't remember last season. That's not... I wouldn't buy the DVD of that. I've got loads of DVDs stretching back. I've even got VHS tapes of Man United season reviews. I will never watch last season again. I won't watch last season again. And we came third, won a cup and got to another cup final. There's nothing from last season that makes me want to put that on. Oh, come on, Seb. Come in and watch this. We finished third. We won the League Cup and we got to the FA Cup final. Get the popcorn on. We're in for a great afternoon of scintillating Manchester United history. No, thank you. No, thank you. We are better than that. And that's where we should be taken. And I'll tell you what. I don't want to talk about Qatar, but if they bought Man United, they weren't buying us to finish third and make money for the Glazers. They were buying us to take us back to the top where we should be, because that's who we are. Not arrogant, just better. If Man United is a tribal village with the Glazers being its hunter providers, are they brave and generous, or do they do the bare minimum, says Matt? They're money makers, mate. That's all they are. The fans got played by the Glazers and Jim, two businessmen with pure business interest. I wish the fans had some testicular fortitude left, says Div. Well, look, hold on. You're sounding a bit like a little bit like Simon Jordan there, and maybe you're right, and maybe Simon Jordan's right. But one thing I will do is listen, and I am very pissed off with this whole process over the last 12 months, and I am dead against anybody that's doing a deal with the Glazers to keep them in the club. But we lost. What I'm now waiting for is the detail. And I don't want to be spun. And I don't want fake. And I don't want projected. And I don't want plan. I want this is going to happen. And I'll wait and see what happens with that. But in no way am I excited or optimistic, because I don't feel we've had any news to be excited or optimistic about yet. And when this news comes out, I will discuss it with you, as we always do, and I'll tell you what I think about it. Mark, there is a verdict expected from the European Court on if UEFA can be the only body managing football in Europe. If UEFA lose, it's a Super League time again. Could that be what the Glazers are holding on for, says Mojo. Look, this is pure opinion. If you're not first, you're last, says Pablo, exactly. This is only opinion, but I said it 2 years ago when the Super League was stopped. They spent a lot of time, the Glazers and Perez and Liverpool and Kroenke and anybody else who was involved. That broke in April. They'd probably been working on that for who knows how long. 8 months, a year, 2 years. That Super League had been worked on for a long time behind everybody's back. And just imagine how excited they were working in the shadows. Just imagine how excited they were about how much money they were going to make with the Super League. And fans destroyed it. Perez still wants it. Secretly, I think some of the Premier League clubs still want it. I guarantee you the Glazers wish it was still happening. If there's any chance of resurrecting that, it's a massive cash cow. If you put Man United in a league that's a worldwide franchise, that you can take them all around the world, playing Arsenal in New York and Real Madrid in Australia and Liverpool in India, and then you've got a league you can't get relegated from, and you're playing the best teams and the TV deals around that, they will be worth 10 billion overnight, probably even more. So if there's any chance of that happening, the Glazers want a piece of that pie. And greedy people always want more. Imagine how the Glazers would feel if they'd sold to Sheikh Jassim this summer, and then in 3 years' time a Super League happens. They'd be kicking themselves. I think that's why they're waiting. I think they're waiting for something. I think whatever the deal they've done with Sir Jim is that you can buy the club from us, but you have to pay the value of it when we go. Maybe there is a road path for Sir Jim Ratcliffe to buy all the clubs, but I guarantee it's not an agreed price. I think the Glazers are projecting something happening in 2, 3, 4 years' time, and that's when they'd be willing to sell, when that's been realised. Also, let's not forget, I do think at some point, it's 2023, we still have this ridiculous TV deal in the UK, which is pretty much dictated to by the Premier League and the FA. You get this ridiculous scenario where you can't play at certain times, you can't put certain time games on the TV. I think if there was some sort of legislation brought in, which, let's be honest, the current rules around TV in the UK is archaic, out of touch and anti-competitive. And I also think that, it's draconian in the sense that you can't put a game on TV between 2 o'clock and 5 o'clock on a Saturday afternoon. That's not going to survive forever. It might survive for 2 years, it might survive for 5 years, but it won't survive forever. And when it goes, what normally happens, it's like the Bosman ruling. Remember, I mean, a lot of you be too old to remember this, but what was the Bosman rule? It basically allowed for free transfers and movement of players. Pre-Bosman rule, it was really hard for players to get out of their contracts. So look, I think when that changes, ultimately the Glazers will be thinking there's a TV deal down the line where we're literally selling Man United season tickets for TV, where we're getting the money, where somebody pays us 200 quid a year and they watch every single Man United game and they get a link and a login. And when that happens, that's another few billion on the value of Manchester United. I think that's why they're hanging about. Hi Mark, love this channel. This takeover confuses me. I feel like a statement from Sir Jim Ratcliffe stating his plans is needed. And we will get that, Shen. We will get that. It's just, without boring myself here, Sir Jim Ratcliffe's statement in the next week or two will be either very clear on what he's going to do or very fuzzy and murky on what he's going to do. And I don't want the second one because that will terrify me. Thank you, Mojo, for your super chat on that. I don't know whether you saw the call-in this afternoon with Beth. And some of you were calling in, which is fantastic. I was listening to it, actually. There was mention on the show about Jadon Sancho and Manchester United paying 70% of his wages. I was looking at some people in the chat and they were going, bollocks, that will never happen. Just remember that Jadon Sancho is on somewhere between £280,000 and £360,000 a week. It's a lot of money. If he goes to Juventus, they will only be able to afford about 100k of his wages, which leaves 200, maybe more than 200, to be paid by us. That literally is 70%. So all these people going, oh, it's just glamorous, sensationalist stuff. Nobody is going to take Jadon Sancho on loan and pay even half of his wages. So if United loan Sancho, we'll be paying at least, I would say, 50, 60, 70% of his wages, which means if someone like Juventus pays Sancho 100 grand a week and we paid the other 200, we would be paying Jadon Sancho to play for Juventus, but we'd be paying him more than most of the Liverpool squad to play for Juventus. That's how ridiculous that situation could be. And I think Sancho will want that. He will want to play for Dortmund or Juventus, and United will be in a position where if he refuses to go to Saudi Arabia and we can't get someone to buy him, we might be put into that stupid scenario. Who's the winner then? Hi Mark, hope you're doing well. Can't wait for the weekend. What's your favourite Bev? Mine's hilarious Major. I'm not an idiot. I'm not reading that. Is there anybody in this current team who you would call a legend? I think it will be a while, says Alan. No. I mean, unless somebody in the chat wants to convince me otherwise, there's not a legend in this team. Is a Bosman transfer extinctly a free transfer? Also, big ups to Mojo for giving out memberships. Yes, Yannick. Yeah, I mean, even I can't remember how the Bosman thing worked. I think basically at the end of your contract, I don't think you were free. But somebody in the chat might let me know. But look, I don't want to be... Shay says, is Rashford not a legend? I think he could be. I mean, you don't become a legend until you retire anyway, let's be honest. I mean, I suppose Ryan Giggs was a legend because he played for so long, and Paul Scholes, and they played for a long time. But normally you don't become a legend until you've retired. There are players who have the potential to be legends at Manchester United, but again, it sort of goes back to what I was saying about Sir Jim. Forget what he's got to do with recruitment and transfers and the stadium. If he delivers consistent title races, everything else will have been done to make that achieve that. And I suppose it's the same with legends. If we start calling any of these current United players legends, we may as well pack up and go home. None of them have won a Premier League. How can you be a legend of Manchester United when you haven't won a bloody Premier League? Danny Welbeck's won a Premier League. Luke Chadwick's won a Premier League. Now, their contribution to that might be minimal, but you can't be a legend of Manchester United if you've only won a bloody Carabao Cup or a Europa League or an FA Cup. Let's get real. To be a legend of Man United, you've got to deliver the minimum of what Man United's all about. And these players, through no fault of their own sometimes, it's all about what team you're playing. But how many of these current players would actually get into an 08 team or a 99 team? I don't think any of them would, actually. Can we do a Sancho and Vlahovic swap deal with Juventus, says Mo. But how would they pay his wages? We're not doing a swap deal with Juventus. There might be a scenario where we can swap Sancho for a player and Juventus are up for it. But Juventus aren't going to be able to pay his wages. The Super League is very similar to the IPL, says Div, in India. The last TV rights for the IPL went for 6.2 billion. Saudis are looking to invest in the IPL and they are deeply interested in the Premier League, says Div. Yeah, Bruno's a legend, said somebody in the chat there. Phil Jones is a legend, says Junior. No, I don't think automatically winning a Premier League makes you a legend. Danny Welbeck's not a legend. I'm just saying none of these lot have actually achieved anything to be a legend, in my opinion. I think a legend is somebody as well. Forget titles for a minute. I think being a legend of Manchester United is somebody that consistently plays well week in, week out. Not every week, but most weeks. I haven't seen a United player play consistently well most weeks since David De Gea. I think he's the only player in the last 10 years that consistently played well most weeks. Not every week, but when I used to watch Roy Keane or Gary Neville or Vidic or Ryan Giggs or Paul Scholes or Wayne Rooney or Cristiano Ronaldo or Steve Bruce or Eric Cantona or Mark Hughes or Paul Ince or, so many players, the thing that they all had in common was that most weeks they played really well. And over the last 10 years, that's just not been the case. Bruno started really well, but he's become, mediocre at times, hasn't he? Obviously, Rashford goes up and down. Pogba was, very inconsistent. Yeah, they're not legends. I wouldn't even say that. I think at the moment it's a debate whether any of them can end up being greats, which is the next layer down. Jonesy says, would you say Gary Neville's a legend? Well, look, I'm not the one with the problem. For me, I think as a player, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is a legend. But I loved that era of teams, whatever you think about them as managers and coaches and pundits, and I agree, some of what they say is prattish at best, but as players, it was so nice to have a collection of players that you could trust, that gave everything and were talented. And I know I sound like the History Channel, but there was a long period of time where you had complete trust in the manager, but the players, and because they were a vehicle of the manager's personality. Leaks from the dressing room, not putting in the effort. You never would have thought that. For 20 years, you never would have thought that. Mark, would Zlatan be a legend of Man United? No, Amir. What? How can Zlatan be a legend of Manchester United? Fuck, he's a legend of the game, potentially, but he's not a legend of Manchester United. He was only here for about 7 months. I'm not getting... Neville coming up. Van Nistelrooy. Okay, yep. It was a good question. It certainly generated some debate. Certainly. No, I think Zlatan's a football's legend. He's not a Man United legend. Bobby Charlton was a legend. Legend should depend on whether you could bend... Okay. Harry Kane is a legend to the Premier League and he won nothing. Why are we talking about Harry Kane? Yeah, I couldn't give a shit about Harry Kane, if I'm being honest. The last legend of this club left for free in the summer. No one is going to be for many years as it stands, says Ray. It's a reflection of what we are. And as somebody said there about Sir Bobby Charlton, whether he can bend the ball or shoot a ball hard or whatever, it's not about that. Being a good footballer doesn't make you a legend. It's what you do in a Manchester United shirt. And it's what you do consistently in a Manchester United shirt. It's ability, it's leadership, it's passion, it's consistency. There used to be something that actually Paul Ince mentioned on the show a couple of years ago. There used to be something where you'd look at a player and go, he's not a Man United player, or he's a Man United player. We don't do that anymore. And I know exactly what Ince is on about because we used to do it as fans. You used to look at a player who was doing well at Southampton or Blackburn or Everton and you'd go, well, they might be doing well, but they're not a Man United player. They're not a Man... And Sir Alex Ferguson used to say that. I remember Brian Kidd mentioning John Hartson, who I think at that time was probably... I don't know where he was playing. It was before he went to Arsenal. And it was mentioned and he was like... Sir Alex was like, come on, he's not a Man United player. We don't do that anymore. We don't have... They're out there, but we don't do that anymore. We don't buy Man United players. And Man United players are players that have the talent, the hunger, the passion, the leadership, the consistency, the character. Basically, it's a failing on the recruitment of the last 10 years. Because I know what a Man United player is. You know what a Man United player is. And unfortunately, our recruitment team doesn't know. They buy talented players who don't have the character. They buy average players who are greedy. They buy players who have the talent but don't have the consistency. They buy weak-minded players. It's a combination of it. And there is such thing as a Manchester United player. That's the first thing that any new recruiter needs to know. I think they need a history lesson. If I was a Paul Mitchell or whoever's going to come in as a director of football, I literally would get MUTV on and watch 92 through to 2012 and spend 2-3 weeks watching everything, looking at the character, looking at the goals, looking at the tackles, looking at the results and going, you know, doing your own work on what Man United's all about and then going out and finding those players. Whether they're 16-year-olds or 26-year-olds, go and find them because they're out there. And we've been very, very bad at buying them. Mojo gifted 20 memberships. I think that we said that already, unless he's done it again. But he's a legend of the chat anyway. Why are you so calm today, Mark? Says Samuel. Well, what have I got? Why would I not be calm? Why would I not be calm? I've got nothing to be stressed about massively at the moment. I'm in a state of calm because I'm waiting for this PR drop. I'm waiting for this detail. I'm ready for it. And I'm ready to go, let's go live. Let's have a look at it. That's why it's the calm before the storm, I suppose. There's going to be a lot of reaction to this and I'm ready for it. Thanks everyone for watching. Don't forget Surfshark, 6 months free with this virtual private network. Give it a try. Fantastic bit of kit, I suppose. Links in the description, or you can scan the QR code there. Big shout out to Surfshark. Barella is a United player, talent and hunger. He's already a United player on my career mode, Total Football. If you know, you know. I can't believe I lost to Celtic. All I'm going to say is I'm going to win the league next year. I'm dedicated. I'm telling you now, I'm going to win the league this year. I'm going to be one of those managers. I'm going to win the league this year. Mark, as you say, only way teams can compete with Newcastle and Man City is that business model. So what point are we people going to accept Abu Dhabi and Saudi have destroyed English football? Well, they have, yeah. They have. Martin. It's evolution. It's the way of the world. But yeah, of course they have. Definitely. Career mode's back tomorrow, Yannick. Yes, it is. Looking forward to it. I'm also back in the morning at 10 o'clock. And I hope you can join me. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure you smash a like on video and subscribe. I will just say at the end, don't forget to check out Surfshark, but also just keep it in your head. Saturday, all-day stream, my charity stream. Do it every year for people with terminal illness. Let's see what we can do. Hope you can join me. I'm not obviously going to see you before then. I'm just reminding you of it so that you go, Saturday, I've got to get involved with the charity stream. Rasmus Højlund looks like a potential legend. Well, let's not load him up with pressure anymore, YEL, but I would love it if he was. Take care, everyone. Legends. I tell you who's a legend. You're legends. There you go. Nice way to finish the show. Because you are. I'll speak to you all in a bit. Take care.